Okay, today we are going deep on something that I think is it's probably the most misunderstood piece of the migraine puzzle. And we are talking about nutrition, but not in the way that you've heard it before. If you've been in this world for any length of time, you've been told probably more times than you can count to eliminate something. Eliminate gluten or dairy or sugar or caffeine or alcohol or chocolate, eat cheese, soy, nightshades. The list can go on, right? And maybe you've done it. Maybe you've sat across from a dinner table eating plain chicken and rice for 3 months straight, feeling like you were doing everything right and you still got a migraine. Or maybe the elimination worked for a while and then it stopped working. And you were left wondering, what else do I have to give up? Do I have to give up more? I'm already giving up enough. So here's what I want you to hear today. The problem was never really about the food you were eating. It goes so much deeper than that. And today I'm going to explain why, because when you understand what's actually happening at the cellular level in your body, specifically in your mitochondria, everything starts to make sense. So let me start with what elimination diets are actually doing, because they're not worthless, they're just incomplete. When you remove a food trigger, you're reducing one input into your body's total inflammatory load. That's it, one input. And for some women, that is enough to feel some relief because maybe that one input, maybe it was the straw that was breaking the camel's back. But here's the thing, your body doesn't just have one thing filling that bucket, it has many, many things filling it. Your nervous system, your hormones, your gut, your sleep, your stress load, your minerals, and yes, your food. So when you remove gluten and you feel better for a while, it's because you lowered the water level in that bucket just enough to stop the overflow. The migraines back off, you think you found the answer. But the rest of the bucket is still filling, and eventually it overflows again. And that's why elimination diets, they work temporarily for so many women and then they stop working. It was never the food. It was the total load. So the question that we should be asking is not, what do I need to cut out? The question is, why is my body treating everything as a threat in the first place? And the answer lives in your mitochondria. Now, if you're thinking mitochondria, I know that word from high school biology. Hang in there. We're going to go through it because what I'm about to explain is going to reframe everything you thought you understood about migraines and nutrition. Your mitochondria, they're these tiny structures inside every cell in your body, and their main job is to take the food that you eat and convert it into usable energy, specifically a molecule called ATP, which is basically it's the fuel that your cells run on. And here's why this matters for migraines. Your brain neurons, the cells that fire during a migraine, they have the highest energy demand of any cell in your entire body. They burn through ATP faster than almost any other tissue. And they're incredibly sensitive to what happens when that energy supply gets disrupted. So when your mitochondria are healthy and working well, your brain cells have what they need to function normally. They can regulate inflammation and they can maintain what we call an appropriate threshold. Basically meaning everyday stressors, weather, food, all of that stuff, lights, smells, they don't push you into a migraine. Your body can actually handle them. But when your mitochondria are struggling, when they can't produce energy efficiently, your brain cells become hypersensitive. Your threshold drops and they become reactive. And things that wouldn't have triggered a migraine before suddenly do. And that's the connection. And it's not about what you ate for lunch. So now we know the connection. So what causes those mitochondrial dysfunction? And this is where it gets really important because this is where most women have never been guided. So there are three big ones that I see with my clients in the Freedom from Migraine method over and over again. And the first is nutrition gaps at the cellular level. Now, I want to be really specific here because this is different from just eating healthy food. I hear this all the time. Debbie, I eat healthy. I have a really healthy diet. Now, you can eat beautifully, whole foods, lots of vegetables, great variety, eating the rainbow, but you can still have significant gaps at the cellular level because getting nutrients into your body is step number one. Getting them into your cells and specifically into your mitochondria where they can actually be utilized, that's a completely different conversation. Your mitochondria need very specific nutrients to do their job. Magnesium is a big one. It's involved in over 300 reactions in your body, and your mitochondria need it to produce ATP. Then there's B vitamins, especially riboflavin, B2, and the active forms of B12 and folate. They are essential cofactors in the energy production pathways. CoQ10 is another critical one. And your electrolytes, sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, they all play a role in the electrical signaling that your mitochondria depends on. But here is the catch. Standard blood work almost never reveals these gaps because your serum magnesium can look perfectly normal on a lab panel while your cells are starving for it. This is one of the reasons that so many women go to their doctor, get their labs back here. Everything looks normal and you still feel terrible because we're measuring the wrong thing. And please, I'm going to caution you here. Don't just run to the store and go pick up magnesium and a B vitamin and CoQ10 because again, we don't know specifically what you need until we figure out what you need. So guessing here can make things worse. Now, the second factor is oxidative stress. So when your mitochondria are working under strain, which happens with chronic inflammation, gut dysfunction, hormonal dysfunction, poor sleep, high stress, when we come into contact with that kind of a lifestyle, your mitochondria produce more what are called free radicals as a byproduct. And free radicals are essentially unstable molecules that damage mitochondrial membranes and disrupt the energy production process. Now, as you can imagine, this creates a vicious cycle. Mitochondrial stress creates oxidative damage. Oxidative damage impairs mitochondrial function, and impaired mitochondrial, that creates more oxidative stress. And all of this is happening in the background, fueling brain hypersensitivity and making your migraine threshold lower and lower over time. Now, the third factor is disruptive sleep-wake cycle. Your mitochondria actually do a significant amount of their repair work during sleep, specifically during your deep sleep. When your circadian rhythm is disrupted, whether that's from inconsistent sleep times or blue light exposure, stress hormone, maybe just chronic poor sleep quality, your mitochondria don't get the repair window they need. And over time, they become less and less efficient at producing the energy that your brain cells depend on. And that's why sleep is not just a nice to have in migraine management. It is a cellular necessity. It is when your mitochondria do their most important work. Now, here is where the Freedom from Migraine method takes a completely different approach to nutrition and why what we call nutrition integration is so different from an elimination diet. When we work on nutrition inside the method, we are not primarily asking, what do we need to cut out? We're asking a very different set of questions. We're asking, what does this woman's body need to actually run? What are the specific cellular level nutrient gaps that are impairing her mitochondrial function? What needs to come in so that her cells can actually do the job? This is a shift from subtraction to optimization, and it changes everything. Now, yes, there is still a phase of reducing the inflammatory inputs. Certain foods can add to the inflammatory load, and we address that. But this is one piece of a much larger picture. The more important question is, are we giving this woman's mitochondria what they actually need? And here's what makes our approach even more specific. We don't just assume what those needs are because every woman is different. Your mitochondrial needs, your specific nutrient gaps, your personal electrolyte imbalance, those are unique to you. What depletes one woman might not deplete another. What supports one woman's mitochondria might not be the priority for someone else. And this is why the check method and electrolyte symmetry framework exist inside of the Freedom from Migraine method, because we need to identify your specific pattern, not give you a generic protocol and kind of just hope it works. And then we zoom out even further because the mitochondria story doesn't exist in isolation. Your mitochondria are affected by your stress hormone. High cortisol directly impairs mitochondrial efficiency. They're affected by your gut health because the gut-brain axis influences inflammation that affects cellular energy production. They're affected by your hormonal patterns. Estrogen actually plays a protective role in mitochondrial function, which is one of the reasons that perimenopause and menopause are often when migraines intensify. And they can be affected by genetic factors. MTHFR gene variants, for example, affect how your body processes B vitamins, which are essential mitochondrial cofactors. This is why we never just address one thing. The inflammation overload loop, it is interconnected. Mitochondrial dysfunction doesn't exist in a vacuum. It is fed by all of these other symptoms, and those symptoms are fed by it. And when you address the full loop, when you work on nutrition, not just as elimination, but as cellular optimization alongside sleep, stress, hormones, gut, and genetics, that's when the threshold actually lifts. That is when your brain stops being hypersensitive. That is when the migraines lose their grip. So to sum all this up, if you spent years cutting things out and not getting lasting results, it's not because you didn't try hard enough. It's because nobody told you that elimination was never the whole answer. Your mitochondria are struggling, not because you ate the wrong things, but because the whole system has been under strain for years, and nobody ever looked at what your cells actually need to run properly. And that's the work that we do inside the Freedom from Migraine method. And it is why women who have tried everything, every diet, every supplement, every treatment, finally find their way to migraine freedom when they go through this program. So if you want to take a step toward understanding what's actually driving your migraines, your specific pattern, your specific cellular gaps, I invite you to book a complimentary migraine breakthrough assessment with me. We will look at your full picture and talk about what it would look like to finally address the root cause. The link's in the show note. I would love to talk with you. All right, until next time, here's to your migraine-free day.